Hi, folks. At some point, we'll look at this book in more detail in the next coming days. I am a quarter way, if not getting to halfway through the book. It's called The Ultimate Proof of Creation by Jason Lisle, Master Books. There is Master Books. There's a link underneath there. But it's The Ultimate Proof of Creation, Resolving the Origins Debate. I'd encourage you to get hold of this book. It is a cracking book defending creation. So I'm just going to walk you through the basic argument of the book. And then another time we will go into specific detail on what this book is saying. Okay, so we'll do that. But until then, yeah, I'll just go briefly through the argument of the book. Basically, the argument of the book is, does your opponent come up to the standard on the preconditions of intelligibility? Okay. Does your opponent come up to the standard of preconditions of intelligibility? In other words, when you are debating on the issue of creation with an evolutionist, they will bring evidence to you and you will bring evidence to them, but that evidence is shaped by your worldview. And so it doesn't matter how much evidence you bring to the evolutionist, they're not really going to believe. So what you do is you undermine the foundation of their thinking by showing that they have no rational basis in order to engage in discussion. In other words, they have to borrow from your worldview in order to make the argument against creation. And so we would say, or he would say, it is, do they meet the conditions of intelligibility? And so what that means is there are three criteria that we can look at to see whether the evolutionist is consistent. You can't come on if you want to come on. If you want to come on, it's not going to be long. Oh, Gareth, God bless you, brother. I didn't realize. But yeah, I'm only just going to be on a minute, brother. A few minutes. So the conditions of intelligibility. It doesn't mention the firmament, but the word firmament, the Hebrew, is expanse. It's not a dome, it's expanse, the word firmament. Just thought I'd let you know. But anyhow, so the preconditions of intelligibility, there are three criteria, okay? The first criteria is logic. The second criteria is the law of uniformity, and the third criteria is morality. So when an evolutionist says we've evolved, you say, okay, you're saying we've evolved and you're bringing up your evidence, but do you have a foundation for rationality to make that point? So, for example, you're using logic, aren't you, as an evolutionist? Yeah. So you're saying we came from matter? Yeah. Is logic material or immaterial? Logic is immaterial. The law of non-contradiction, A is not B in the same context, is immaterial. The law of non-contradiction does not change. Material things change. Evolution changes. So how do you as an evolutionist account for the law of non-contradiction? You're using logic to attack creation, but yet you have to borrow the foundation of logic from Christianity. Our God is immaterial, and so he made immaterial logic. But how do you get it immaterial logic? In a movement of change in material things, because logic does not change. The water, I think, if you want to study, the greatest person on creation is Henry Morris. So what you need to do is look at Henry Morris study Bible, and he is superb on the issue. You know, years ago, people, even in the church, didn't believe in the flood. They didn't believe in Noah's flood. Okay, they didn't believe in Noah's flood, and because they didn't believe in Noah's flood, he wrote books defending Noah's flood. That was in the 60s, and he put it on the map that Noah's flood existed, that it was real. And he's the main guy that really put that on the map, and that is him, the Henry Morris. So if we read the notes on Hebrew here, on Hebrew, but you're taking me away from what I was talking about, so I'll get back to what I'm talking about in a minute. But so if you look at the Hebrew, the Hebrew. So he says this on Genesis 1:5. So Genesis 1:5 says, and God called the light day, and the evening he called night. Verse 6, and God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Okay. So here is Henry Morris, who is one of the most amazing scholars on creation. He says, the firmament is not a great vaulted dome in the sky, as some have interpreted, but is simply the atmospheric expanse established between the waters above and below. The Hebrew word rakaya means expanse, or perhaps better, stretched out. Thinness. Since God specifically identified it with heaven, it also can be understood simply with the great space between the waters below and the space retained. The element, earth, material waters above the firmament had apparently been transformed into vapor state in order to be separated from the heavier materials and elevated above the atmosphere, where it could serve as a thermal blanket on the earth's future inhabitants. Such a vapor canopy would undoubtedly have provided a highly sufficient greenhouse effect the earth against harmful radiations from space, and also retains and spreads the incoming solar heat. A vapor canopy could thus provide an ideal environment for abundant animal and plant life, and for longevity and comfort in human life. Water vapor is invincible and thus could be translucent, allowing the stars to be seen through it. This would not be the case with liquid water or icy canopy. Above the firmament, the waters which were above the firmament are clearly not the clouds or the vapor which now float in the atmosphere. The Hebrew word al definitely requires the meaning above. Further, the absence of rain, 2:5, Genesis 2:5, and the rainbow, Genesis 9:13, not only explained but required by a vapor canopy, not by an atmosphere like that of the present. These waters extended far out into space, eventually condensed and fell back to the earth at the time of the great deluge, providing the source of the worldwide rainstorm that contributed to the flood. Although the exact extent and structure of this canopy is still being researched by computer simulation, there are no major scientific problems with the concept. So there we have it. That's Henry Morris, one of the great scholars on the Genesis account, who's defended against evolution in a powerful way. So he's gone into the Hebrew there, and he's told you the science. So anyhow, I want to get back to the main point. That's not what we're here talking about. We're talking about the conditions of intelligibility. So if the evolutionist comes to you and says, it came from a big bang and it was a process over billions of years, you said, do you meet the conditions of intelligibility? In other words, do you have a foundation for rational discussion? You're trying to bring these arguments, but do you have a foundation for these arguments? So number one, logic. How do you account for logic? Logic, is it material or immaterial? If they said logic's material, logic changes, therefore the argument could change, therefore there's no point in arguing against me because your argument could change. So the conditions of intelligibility. Logic is immaterial. How does evolution account for that? Logic is immaterial and it doesn't change. Also, the number one, things change. The material world changes, evolution changes, but the number one does not change. So there are these metaphysical things outside of the material. How does evolution account for that? We can account for it because God is immaterial. Secondly, the law of uniformity. The question is, how do you know as an evolutionist the future is going to be like the past? And you might say, well, because it's always been like the past. That is circular reasoning. Just because it happened in the past does not mean the future is going to be like the past. You're assuming it. You haven't proved it. You don't know what the future is going to be like, but yet you believe the future is going to be like the past, which means you are believing in the Bible, because the Bible tells us that God is upholding the world, so we know that there's going to be a future the same as the past. So you're actually assuming our worldview in order to do science. So that's the issue of uniformity. And then thirdly, the issue of morality. The evolutionists say we have evolved. Well, how do they account for right and wrong? There is no right and wrong if you believe in evolution. Yet we have a standard that God gives a law: do not lie, do not steal. We have a moral foundation. That is an absolute. Theirs is arbitrary. So we meet the three conditions of intelligibility. They don't. That's what the book is about. All right? That's what the book is about, and we'll go into it in the future in detail, more detail on that, and we'll also do some more studies in the future. So that's it. So Fred Dino, Unmasking the Truth. Yeah. Thanks, bro. Thank you. So I'm going to go. It's just a short one, this one. We'll do more on this book another time. I wanted to spend more time on it, but I saw Billy Moore's video, so I thought I'd do a bit on that. All right, so I'll do some on that another time. I got to go. Gareth, God bless you. I hope I can see you sometime, mate. I've been wanting to see you, so I hope I can see you sometime. Got to go. Love you all. Take care, and God bless you.